Hello! Today we are going to study chapter 6 called Bhakt. I'm taking this chapter in continuation to chapter 3 because both chapter 3 and chapter 6 look at a very powerful and important movement called the Bhakti movement. And the Bhakti movement was a movement that changed the outlook of Hinduism. In chapter 3, Religious Leaders and Social Reformers, we looked at a very important feature of medieval India, which is the Bhakti movement. And we studied that many of the saints stressed a lot on moksha or mukti, and in English as it's known as freedom or salvation. And the saints realized that moksha or mukti, being a very important part of Hinduism, can only be achieved through bhakti or devotion to God. We also learned that mukti or moksha, which is freedom from rebirth or from the cycle of life and death, could only be achieved if the Atman or soul united with its creator, where it originally came from. But only a pure Atman or soul has the good fortune of attaining this bliss, and an impure Atman or soul or a sinner can only reach God if his burden of sins is washed away. So in Hinduism, they believed that a sinful soul goes through the journey of cleansing, and it goes through the cycle of life and death until the sins are washed away. The Hindu philosophy believes that one's present life is a result of your previous life karma, meaning that how your life is today is because of how it was in the past life. And in Hinduism, there are several ways mentioned through which one could attain moksha or salvation. They could attain it through margas or paths. So Bhakti Marga means the path to devotion or bhakti. Jnana Marga means the path of knowledge. Karma Marga means the path of good action. And Yajna Marga is the path of sacrifice. So in Hinduism, they believed that one could attain moksha by using any of these margas or all of the margas, and by doing that, one could purify their soul and have a sense of unity or connection with God. The Bhakti saints from South India, that is Adi Shankaracharya, Ramanujacharya, and Madhvacharya, who initiated or started the movement, along with Basaveshwara from Karnataka, were all very well learned in the Vedas and Upanishads and in the Hindus' holy scriptures. They were translating Hindu scriptures, and so their belief was not based on blind faith and practices. These saints had the courage to question the customs and traditions and the belief systems, which they felt were not a part of Hinduism, as they knew it. They opposed the caste system because the Vedas never had mention of untouchables. So the three acharyas and Basaveshwara felt that all men were one and everyone had the right to compassion and respect. The caste system to these saints was unfair exploitation of a poor section of the community who could never raise above their circumstances because of the rigidness and unflexible caste system. Once a Hindu was born into a caste, he was stuck in it for all his life. A Dalit would remain a Dalit for all his life. A Vaishya would remain a Vaishya for all his life. It was like a stamp, and one's caste determined one's fate or one's luck. The caste system lacked humanity, and it was because of this that the Bhakti saints opposed it. They felt that they needed to bring back the real and true spirit of Hinduism, which was humanity. Complete belief and absolute surrender in God was the basic teaching of the Bhakti saints. At the same time, Sufism too was growing amongst the Muslims, which had a powerful impact on Hinduism. Sufism came to India during the time of the conquest of Muhammad Ghori. Khwaja Muinuddin Chishti settled in Ajmer around 1206 and won the respect of both Muslims and non-Muslims. The Sufi saints taught love, humanity, and cosmic harmony. Sufism was based on the teaching that through love of God, one can achieve union with God, and it aimed at service to mankind and was not in favor of materialistic life. It also looked at unity between Hindus and Muslims, which it achieved quite successfully. Sufi and Bhakti movement awakened the people about God and religion, and the saints did everything to establish brotherhood, friendship, and love. Bhakti Panth reached people of all sections of society because it was a movement for all people. It wasn't only for the rich or only for the poor or only for the priests. It was for everyone. The saints who were a part of the movement spread the teachings and ideas of Bhakti in the local language, and this is why it reached the people successfully. Let's have a look at some of the saints, starting with Ramananda, who was born in a Brahmin family in Allahabad. He was a follower of Ramanuja Acharya and established the Vaishnava school. He traveled to several places in North India and popularized or made famous the worship of Rama and Sita. Varanasi was his center of activity. He strongly opposed caste system and he allowed all castes to join his group. Kabir Das was one of his followers, and Ramananda preached in Hindi. Now we will look at Kabir Das, who lived in North India, born to a family of weavers called Julas in Varanasi. He was against caste system and idol worship and said that God is one and is the same for Hindus and Muslims. He tried to bring harmony between Hindus and Muslims. He preached in Hindi like his guru Ramananda. Kabir Das composed dohes or couplets, which are popular even today. Kabir's dohe teaches one an important lesson of life, and it also shifts the attitude towards life. His followers are called Kabir Panthis, meaning travelers who go on the path of Kabir. He is considered a great social reformer in India. Now, the next Bhakti saint we're going to be looking at is Chaitanya, who was born to a Brahmin family. He took Diksha at the age of 25 and became the disciple or the student of Sri Krishna Panth. He lived in Mathura and Vrindavan for many years. He preached that differences of caste can be removed through discipline and man becomes pure through devotion. He popularized the worship of Krishna and composed many devotional songs in praise of Krishna. He opposed caste system and he always tried to bring about a sense of brotherhood between people. His thoughts and teachings are collected in the book Chaitanya Charitamrita. Now we should look at another very popular saint called Guru Nanak. Nanak had an attraction towards religion since childhood. He was born in Talawandi, which is in Pakistan now. After traveling around India for many years, Guru Nanak established a religious center in Kartarpur on the riverbank of Ravi. He made his followers to sit and eat together irrespective of caste or creed. He started Langar, a community kitchen where food is prepared and served to all. His religious center became a sacred place for his followers, who later called it Gurudwara. Nanak was against idol worship and opposed caste system. He taught that God is one. He paid a lot of stress on importance of good deeds and morals. He had followers from Hinduism and Muslim communities. His followers are called Sikhs. His teachings are compiled in Guru Granth Sahib. Now we are going to be looking at a lady saint called Mirabai. She was a princess from Mewad. She left her luxurious life and riches for the love of Krishna. She was married to a Rajput prince, but yet she left everything for the love of Krishna. Mirabai was a disciple of Ravidas, who was a saint born into an untouchable class. Mirabai composed songs and bhajans in devotion to Krishna, and in her bhajans, she always criticized the upper caste. Let's quickly have a look at the Sufi saints as well. The Sufi saints arrived from Persia and settled in different parts of India. They were called peers or teachers by their students. The Sufis preached that it was possible to reach God or Allah through devotion and love. They gave importance to respecting everyone. They believed that dance and music filled with devotion takes one closer to God. They composed devotional songs in Urdu and Hindi to share in the importance of devotion. Sufism had spread throughout India, and there were about 12 different groups in Sufism. Bidar, Kalburgi, Vijayapura, and some other places of North Karnataka are important places of Sufism. Both Hindus and Muslims take part in a religious ceremony in Sufism called Urs. Urs is celebrated even today, and it brings Hindus and Muslims together, and that was the beauty of Sufism. It united the Hindus and the Muslims, and it played a huge role in uniting the two communities in North India. We're not going to be looking at any one specific Sufi saint. So let's go back to looking at some other saints like Shishunala Sharifa. Now, Shishunala Sharifa was named Muhammad Sharif. He was influenced by Islam and also by Veerashaiva and the Vedic philosophy. And a Hindu teacher by the name of Govind Bhatt was his guru. Sharifa opened a school for children called Shishunala to give education to children. His education provided a complete vision of life, emotional, social, psychological, so it was very holistic. He was a poet, a philosopher, and a social reformer. He was always interested in people and participated in fairs, dramas, and various religious festivals that was arranged in Shishunala. He's known as a Kabir Das of Karnataka. Govind Bhatta and Sharifa worked very hard to spread brotherhood, especially between the Hindus and the Muslims. Kanakadasa, the star of Mysore. He was born to Birappa and Bachama, who were Shaivites in faith and followed Ramanujacharya. He was originally named Timmappa by his family as per the family deity. There's a very interesting story about Timmappa, that once Timmappa came across gold hidden under the earth, and soon people gave him the nickname Kanaka, which means gold. Kanakadasa was a social reformer, and he opposed any social evil. He was well educated and a scholar. Kanakadasa was a warrior and fought many wars. He broke the belief of the priestly class that in order to attain moksha, one has to be born in higher caste. And he opposed this and spread awareness against it through his kirtanas. Because Kanakadasa was a poet, he created meaningful kirtanas. He wrote the Kirtanas Mohanata Rajini, Nala Charitre, and Ramadhaya Charitre. Kanakadasa gave up the sword after he realized how useless hate and wars were. He was a local war chieftain of Banakapura, and he was very good in his war techniques. But an accident that wounded him made him question the meaning of life and death, and made him follow the Dasa path. And so, from Kanaka, he became Kanaka Dasa. Let's look at the effects of the Bhakti movement. Hinduism was being reformed, and Hindus were opening their minds and questioning illogical practices and belief systems. Blind faith was slowly giving way to reasoning and mindful thinking. Thanks to Sufi saints and Kabir Das, Guru Nanak, harmony and unity was spreading amongst Hindus and Muslims. There was religious respect for each other's rituals and traditions, and so there was religious tolerance. There was also no specific language. Anyone who understood Brahma or God and who was inspired spoke in the local regional language, and this was very, very revolutionary. So instead of Sanskrit, Arabic, and Persian, the saints preached in the local language which was easily understood by the regional people. Kabir Das, for example, used a mix of several languages, and through this movement, various languages got prominence. Hindi, Marathi, Bengali, for example, became some of the most prominent languages. So, through the Bhakti movement, some regional languages were getting promoted. There was also a social impact that was tremendous. The voiceless community of the Shudras and the Dalit were soon beginning to recognize their rights and questioning their social standing. So also were the women folk who were oppressed. They too started questioning their social standing. The Dalit and the Shudras were beginning to stand for themselves, and along with them, many of the oppressed classes were also beginning to stand for themselves. There were several practices and rituals and traditions that had crept into Hinduism. Class and caste differences, sati, for example, child marriage. Now, all of these were being targeted by the Bhakti movement saints. There were also cultural differences which were removed because of this popular movement. And because of this movement, people were brought together, and it had a great religious impact. There were many benefits because of the Bhakti movement, as we can see. There was great moral influence as well. It brought in a spirit of piety. Many high caste Hindus were of the opinion that only their wealth was pious and valuable. But through the movement, there was a lot of stress on earning wealth through hard work, and it gave value to honest, hard-earned money. It also encouraged social service to poor and the needy. Humanitarian attitude was developed to help one another become better human beings. And through this movement, people were learning to overcome greed, anger, and vanity. These were some of the great aspects of the Bhakti movement, but the movement had a negative impact as well. The movement further divided the Hindu society. Example, the followers of Kabir were called Kabir Panthis. So where class system and class or any divide was what the saints stood against and opposed, now a new kind of division and loyalty to saints was emerging, and that was again causing differences. It gave rise to Tantra, an offshoot of Bhakti. By uttering mantra and making various gestures, it was believed that one could attain their desires and gain supernatural powers. The saints taught universal love and brotherhood and created a revolution, but the disciples failed to rise above personal differences, and because of which sects and subsects were created. Some Hindus held on to caste system even more, because of which cultural unity was not achieved. With this, we end chapter 6, that was in continuation to chapter 3, all revolving around the Bhakti movement. In my next class, I bring you chapter 4, Vijayanagara and Pamani kingdoms, the great South Indian kingdoms that rose to power. So until then, keep your thinking caps on, have fun, and remember, knowledge is power. Take care.